Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It is August 23rd. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and we had a nice trend up, a close outside right in here. We really had an overshoot here, I believe, but this was a fairly strong trend. Notice that your measured move is here, and then your next, you could either go there and then try it there if you continued higher, but either way, we didn't make it. And generally that means you're going to move a pretty good distance in the other direction. So that was a clue once we started going lower that it might continue to go lower. Um, so yeah, nice trend up. Then we were just sideways, and then a decent trend down that was fairly easy to spot as well. So, so yeah, a pretty good trading day. There's a lot of green ones in here. I'll explain these. All of these are valid trades that are green across here, with a couple of exceptions. So I made them green, and we'll talk about those exceptions when we get to them. So I'm going to back out a little further. Won't take long today because it's not a lot of trades. But first trade I saw was here. Um, we had an overshoot here, but all we're doing is we're working back to the trend line. And really what's going on is the trend is so strong that we can't really correct much. So we just kind of work sideways back to the trend line. And notice you got one leg, first entry, second leg, second entry. And this thing went lower, bounced right off the trend line and went out the other side. And you do come down and get a close and a new low there. So I like just having a stop waiting right there, and boom. And you might have even considered adding on here, but it's so close to the highs. Really, your next high is here and then here. So there's a little bit of room there. I would probably skip it. I'll go ahead and mark it green, but you might consider entering there if you weren't in already, or adding on there. The fact that you got 4 bars in a row there that are finding resistance makes it a little iffy. But this has been a strong trend, and we're probably going to make a new high at the very least. But it doesn't happen. So, yeah, I'd be real leery of that one. Then we get another pullback here. There's no close outside the trend line and new low. We didn't get back to the EMA, didn't get back to the trend line. You got to go long right into those highs. I don't like that. So I think you're better off to wait. And then of course it pulls back. You get a close outside like right here, very iffy here. Then you get another one here, and it actually pushes to a new low and closes all in the same move, but it's right off the EMA trend line. There's a double bottom there. Um, the only stipulation to this one is you don't have a lot of room here. When you enter here, you're probably going to let it break higher and drop a limit order in, and you could have gotten filled a tick back in that bar, and that gives you a couple of extra ticks to get out. Notice where it turns down, right at the last high. And then it's tempting to enter here. You get a double test and a fairly bullish bar, but look where that double top is. There's not room to get out there. So you don't want to enter there. Same thing here. It turns down again, and that's really a doji right there because it closes in the middle. You got equal stem on each side, so that's a 1 bar trading range. Nope, you can't enter there either. So now you're just kind of going sideways. It pulls back and comes back and tests here. So really the whole point here is the only way you can enter is if you can get in low enough here to get out before the last highs. And once we've made that new high right there, then we should be reversing. And so you could go short from that point on off the highs as long as you got in enough to get out before the last high. So this one really could be red right here. I'm going to go ahead and change it. It's real close borderline, but I wanted to be sure I mentioned the fact that you got to make sure you got enough room to get out before the last low, and you can see there's enough room here to get out. There's just enough room, and so this was a pretty good trade. But when you come back in the middle here, there's not enough room, so you got to skip that one. Again, here, you got to get in low enough that you can get out before that high, because that's the last swing high right there. Notice that's where we made a double top. and you can't go low there because it's right into the lows, and so you don't have room to get out there. And then you finally get a little failed break lower. Again, make sure you got enough room to get out before you get here. And this one, I think there's enough even with a stop. So this one could be red too, actually. Shoot, I can't. So I'm going to change this one to red. I was a little hesitant to make any of those red because that range is so tight. But as long as you understand what I'm saying there, and this one actually should be blue. I'm sorry. Man, I can't quit grabbing that line there. It doesn't click on the right thing. Okay, now we got them right. And then there's a high here. There's still a trend line. That's the first close outside. Actually, I had that trend line right off those first couple of swings there. But when it bounced higher here, I kind of adjusted it just a little. And then that ended up fitting the rest of the day too. So it worked out pretty good. So you really couldn't take this first short. There's not enough room before this low right here. It's only about 4 ticks. It would have worked, but you can't risk that. So, but then it pulls back and it tests that trend line again, and that's your. This really, you could treat almost like the third confirmation, but it wasn't a very good setup. So, I think in the end the line's a little higher. This is your third confirmation, and you get a big bearish bar, and this is like a breakout pullback. There's really a second entry short, but you're waiting on the little long trap right there. And so now you got enough room to get out. And this is a breakout pullback as well. And you got a triple top. Each one's you're lower than your original ones. So I like that one. When it didn't go on, I don't like adding on here, but shoot, I can't ever grab what I want to grab. But let me explain this. Notice that's a double triple top, so that's like a new high, pullback first entry, pullback second entry. So that's like a trap right there. The only reason I made it green is it's right into that support, and it seems to be kind of holding, and you're probably already in from here and not out yet. So I wouldn't add on there, and I don't think I would enter a new trade there. But there is a trap. It's probably going to trap some longs, and you can tell it did that by how it took on off here. So I did mark it green, but now we've got a channel working lower. So you really don't want to take any more longs. Notice we're coming back here. There's a trend line working up here too. Get a break, attempted a new high, and we just can't do it. That's probably close enough to the trend line. The trend line may be just a tad steeper than that. That's close enough. I thought it was touching my trend line before, but when I really zoomed in, it's not. But it went higher and then turned and went out the other side. You did have to be concerned about this low. So when it broke lower, instead of having to stop there, maybe you drop a limit order, let it pull back just enough. And this is like a breakout. Even though it didn't tick one tick shorter, that's still a breakout pullback short. And because that's where your resistance is really, most of your closes and stuff. And it pulls back and tests that, turns down, and man, that's a nice move there. So now the downtrend started. We get a correction here. Break of the trend line, we pull back. We make a lower high, but once again, we don't get back to the trend line. It breaks higher and turns and goes out the other side. So again, you might want to enter that one. You got to make sure you got enough room to get out before these lows right here, and you don't if you use a stop. So you probably got to use a limit order. The fact that it hadn't made a new high, it's now back to the trend line, I'd probably wait. Turns out to be a nice move, but you can't risk that. So then it's coming back. You get a break, move to a new high, and another short right here. This one is close to being red. it's just not a very bear. It's a bearish bar, but there's still a couple of ticks stem at that low. So I'm just not crazy about it. But it does fit the rules. You might want to enter there. There's probably enough room to get out here, I believe. But you're better off to wait, and then it pulls back, and that's like a repeat of a couple of these others up here, and it turns back down, and that's your better move. And then you got another trend line working up, it turns down again, but you don't have a very bearish bar. That's the first close outside. Comes back here, and that would have been another repeat pattern again, and you could have gone short again, but it's after 2 o'clock, so, and you can see that would have been another nice move. So remember, what are we trying to do? Where your best trades always originate? Off the key entry points. Where are the key entry points? This trend line going up is your key entry point on the way up. When we're going sideways, it's really the lows, because we're looking to get long until we make the new high here, and then it's shorts off the highs. And just remember on these, you don't just buy it blindly. Somebody commented about that on one of the last couple of days, but you don't just buy this blindly, because you'll probably get burned. You wait till you get a setup, a price action setup, and then it's got to be, you got to have enough room to get out before you get to the last swing high or the other side or whatever. And so, but the key entry points across here are the resistance and the support. And then once we start going lower, where are the key entry points? Right off the trend line again, the resistance area, because we're going down. It's the support area going up, resistance going down, and when you're going sideways, support and resistance. And that's where all your good trades originated from. You can see that very clearly. So just remember that. And, I get a lot of questions, mostly from brand new people, about trend lines. This trend line business it's a skill, and you got to know how to draw them. You can be close and not be exact and usually get it right, but you can't be completely wrong. And the way you can tell if you got it right is it's fitting neatly on both sides. Look what's happening going across here. You know my support and resistance, because it's turning down off the highs and it's turning up off the lows. So I know I got those lines right. This trend line going up. Look how it's bouncing off that trend line every time it gets back to it, and it's turning down off of that upper channel line, trend channel line, every time it touches it, except for right here, and then we just overshot it right there. So if your trend line is drawn something like this, I'm just giving you an example, just so I'm not saying this. And you actually could make an argument for that one at a break and move like there. But notice how it's not fitting in there. Notice how it's turning down right across here instead of on this trend line. And notice how it's closing outside and still going high. And so it may not be the best example, but it's almost hard to draw them wrong once you learn how to draw them. But I'll see people draw them all kind of weird ways, and then wonder why they had a failed trade, and their trend line is completely off. Like here, you might get somebody that draws one like this, and then they come down here and they draw one across like so. And so they're trying to trade that trend line. And notice there's no touches up there. There's very few down here. It's not holding. And so they get thrown off. They don't know what to do. And so your trend lines have to be right. And it is a skill, but when you have them right, they'll fit neatly within those lines until you may get an overshoot. We seem to get a lot of those lately. The market's just been kind of screwy. But for the most part, your trend lines will be very straightforward, and you don't get a lot of, you won't see a lot of overshoots and undershoots and things. You'll just see it working down neatly within that trend line until you get a break and then a new low, and then it reverses and does the same thing on the way up. So hopefully that's helpful to some of you, especially the newer people. But it is a skill, and if you don't draw them right and you're 100% wrong, then you're not going to know where the key entry points are. So I'm going to say it one more time. Where are the key entry points? Off the trend lines, going up it'll be this trend line, coming down it'll be this trend line, and in ranges off the support and the resistance. So I hope that's clear. And occasionally the 21 EMA, really your best trades are when you're like right here where your EMA and your trend line match, right in here. Those are generally really good trades. And so keep that in mind. Yeah, we had a nice trend up. We went sideways and a fairly decent trend down as well. So, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.